Hello.
Hello. All right. We're all official.
I know. Um, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Everything good? Perfect. Okay, so I am joined with the beautiful Miss Carrie O'Rourke. She's the founder of COR Golf Fitness, named the 2023 and 2024 Golf Fitness Association Award winner. So big round of applause for that. And a personal favorite family friend of mine. So thank you very much. Um, I'd like to take the time for you to just kind of introduce yourself, what your business and clientele is kind of all about, and maybe a little bit about your journey through sports in general.
Sure. So my business is Core Golf Fitness. I'm a TPI certified golf fitness professional, and I help golfers over age 45, typically male, but sometimes female, to improve their flexibility and speed to play with less pain and more power. So essentially, I'm looking at the performance aspect of golf as it relates to your body. So not necessarily swing mechanics, not necessarily club management, not getting new shafts, but actually making sure your body's able to rotate and move in the way to support the golf swing that you know that you have. So my journey to get to this place started like I would say many moms many years ago when both of my sons are born. I became a stay-at-home mom and worked into the personal training space as a mom job. And eventually my kids became high-level junior golfers. And at that point, I became TPA certified to help my children become the best golfers they could because we do everything we can to help our kids. And over
Mhm.
time, that evolved into a business for me and I changed my focus from youth golfers into the older clientele because that's just such an underserved market.
Of course. And so I know you're kind of saying that core golf fitness really focuses primarily on improving your game through a more physical aspect with mobility, balance, speed, power. However, I'm wondering, how do you emphasize the importance of that like mind-body connection with your clientele?
Absolutely. That's an important piece. And in golf, you need to trust your body to perform on demand. So a lot of it comes down to trusting yourself. And if you've prepared fully, knowing that you have the ability, you have the stamina, you have the energy, you have the power at any age, really, that when
Mhm.
you're stepping up to that first tee, you're fully prepared. And that's going to boost your confidence on the golf course as well.
Yeah, of course. And I'm no pro golfer myself, but I think definitely that moment where you're kind of stepping up to the tee, you're just like, gosh, like, am I just gonna like completely shank this and like lose my ball in front of like all these people? And trust me, I'm no professional again by any means, but I think that goes to show that like anyone is going to have that kind of like gray area of confidence where it's like you feel good stepping up to the plate in a way, but then like once you're there, you're just like, oh no, like don't mess up.
And
So,
I hear that same aspect from amateur golfers, you and I going to the golf course at first tee, you feel like everybody's watching you and you don't want to, you don't know where it's going to go. All the
mhm.
way up to professional golfers. I just spoke to one of my professional PGA players. He was invited to play in the TaylorMade National Championship last week at Pebble Beach, and he
Oh
felt the same
wow.
way. So he's like, "Yeah, I stepped at the first tee, and it was a little bit intimidating because I'm surrounded by all these other PGA professionals." So that aspect goes hand in hand at whatever level you're at. And then for him, he went in and revisited, some of the things that we had done together as far as his physicality for golf. So when he stepped up to the tee again, he felt a little bit more prepared that he wasn't going to be sore and tired while trying to walk in the wind and the rain at Pebble Beach.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you bring that up because do you think he probably felt some sort of like imposter syndrome almost with being there amongst
I
all those
don't we all?
because I know just even working in sports in general, like with myself being in LA for the US Open, I just kind of realized I'm like, gosh, like, do I really like deserve to be here? And I think it's important just to kind of stay rooted in what you know and what you've learned, especially with the people surrounding you, whether that's coaches, parents, coworkers. I think it's so important to be like grounded in that aspect and just kind of like go back to your roots. So also, I think a follow-up question for me really is like, I know every golfer may be different in like physical, mental aspects. So, how do you really tailor your program to your clients, or what do you look for? Is it more of like a, okay, what are you struggling with? Let's start there, or is it kind of more like militant step one, step two, step three?
I would say a combination of both. There is a assessment that's provided by Titleist Performance Institute, known as TPI, which is the performance division of Titleist. All my golfers start with this specific assessment to understand exactly where they are having issues. So you may think, like, if I just ask you where you're struggling, they may think it's their back, but really it's their hips. So that's
Oh,
a really great place to identify exactly where your restrictions are in the golf swing so that you know what you have to fix. So that also lends itself to having the confidence and mental attitude because you're now understanding your body from a data-driven, science-backed perspective versus just trying to
mhm.
guess what you're doing.
Okay. Do you ever have clients or golfers trying to like, I guess, quote unquote, like fight you on like what's actually like wrong with them? Or do they just kind of, they're like, hey, you're the professional. Like,
I think I would hope when somebody is spending their time and investing their dollars into a professional and expert, whatever it is, that you're at a point where you're going to trust their judgment.
yeah.
So I'm not just telling random persons at the range how to do things. Like these are people who have made the conscious decision to be better and again invest their time and money into my expertise. So in that sense, no, I don't have people say no, this is incorrect, but it's oftentimes surprising and eye-opening, especially someone who is a like a single digit handicap player and they end up scoring terribly on this assessment showing that their body is kind of a wreck. They know that internally, but seeing it on paper is like, okay, now I understand what I need to be do to be a better golfer because I already know how to swing a club. I've already taken lessons. My guys have played for 20, 30 years. So
Mhm.
they're understanding that this is the piece that they're missing.
Yeah. I know you mentioned your sons, of course, who I both love and adore. But one in particular, he has competed at like the Junior PGA Championship. He's pretty up there, I would say, honestly. So, how do you kind of balance that parent coach dynamic with him? Or does he sometimes just go to you and be like, Mom, I need some help?
Well, I will say my coaching happened more when he was younger. So now Ryan is a sophomore in college playing college golf. So my expertise came into play when he was just learning how to work out in the gym and setting up the standards for him moving forward. And he'll ask me sometimes now, but we've got him in a good routine. We've done that evaluation with him multiple times. And I've also worked hand in hand with his swing coach who also understands how the evaluation works so
Mm-hmm.
that we can make sure he's utilized the best. You also asked about parenting versus coaching. I think that's a topic for all of us, whether you're a golf professional or not,
Yeah.
looking towards being a parent to our junior golfers. I've seen it all on the golf course from parents who are have a whole like stay back attitude to parents that you know are creating anxiety for their children.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is the PGA Junior League, which is 13 and under, which both my kids competed in. And they actually had to create rules as a league that as a parent, you couldn't even hand your child a bottle of water. You had to hand it to the officiator to hand it to your kid
Oh.
because of the abuse of parents prior to you. So now we all have to go, but like by these new rules in order to protect the kids who are not getting tips and tricks from parents as they're in this sometimes high level competition. I've been able to work out a nice groove with Ryan on the golf course where like I know when he's getting to about hole halfway through 8, 9, 10, and there's a par five, and he hits his driver. That's when he wants to eat his peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I walk up to him and I hand it to him, and I don't look at him and I don't talk to him and I walk away.
Perfect.
That is our groove that we have that works for us because I understand his body language and his temperament and his attitude, and when I can and can't talk to him. Not
Yeah.
in a coaching aspect, but sometimes just like, hey, you got this. So you don't want to hear that as a junior, when they're having a bad round, they know what they're doing wrong. They
Yeah.
don't, well, they're all different, but most of them don't want their parents to tell them what they need to fix in mid-round when they know they're screwing up. So
Yeah, yeah, I totally relate to that because I remember just playing basketball in high school when my parents would be at the games and I'd come home after a bad loss and my dad would be like, on that one play you didn't pick and roll and I'm like, that's literally the last thing I want to hear right now.
that's the
I
last thing you
don't.
want to hear.
So, but yeah, I totally relate to that and that's awesome that you guys have that relationship. I know you mentioned the parents that tend to cause that anxiety for their kids. And I know maybe half of the time they probably don't really are really self-aware of the fact that they're doing that. Do you ever feel as a coach or just someone that has kids, do you ever feel this maybe obligation to step in a way and be like, hey, I know my stuff and like this is clearly not working. Can I like have a conversation with you as to why it's not? Or do you just
That's
kind of go like, that's
that's a
your kid?
well, that's a tough situation. For myself personally, if I felt like it was affecting my athlete
Hmm.
personally, then I may in some way say something. Um, I in the past, I'm trying to think of times where I've interjected. So both my kids played hockey prior to golf, and both their teams, I was the team trainer, even though they were kids. And I did have one hockey player who was just terribly behaved, wouldn't listen during our training, off ice training sessions, and was making the experience one, not fun for me. I'm volunteering my time and my expertise, and two,
Yeah.
not fun for the other kids. So I did end up speaking to that parent privately, and she handled it very well. We had a golf parent, a mom who was like obsessively posting about her child on social media. Her intention was to try and get college coaches' attention.
Mhm.
And the rest of us as moms, we did like reach out to her privately and said, that's not really how this is going to work. Like your child should be posting this, not you. And so she ended up kind of backing off in a little bit of a way. So to your point, not having the wherewithal to understand that this wasn't helping. But
Mhm.
if I'm in a hockey game and another parent is yelling at their kid and it's not affecting mine, I probably wouldn't interject.
Yeah, I think because I just remember like one of my first jobs was being a ref for like community at basketball. And I remember quitting after a week because the parents were just horrible, not only to like their kids who are borderline maybe like 7 years old and traveling every single place they go, but also me because I'm not calling it. And they're like, what are you doing? And like all this other foul language. And I'm like, she's 7. I'm like, give it, I'm like, give it a rest.
And that leads itself to a larger conversation
Mm-hmm.
about athletic sports in general and the pressure that we're putting on these kids at 7,
Mm-hmm.
and as parents. Even at Little League baseball, that's not travel, it doesn't count for anything. It's just fun. There's parents yelling at the refs who are, to your point, high school kids who are,
Mm-hmm.
getting paid to rep the 8-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm
it's
like, I'm literally a kid, right?
right.
Like in high school, like I don't know what you want me to do. Yeah, I think it's definitely harder thinking about how parents and coaches can shape like a sporting career or like the future of an athlete. Have you ever, um, I'm not sure how I would phrase this, but with pressure on athletes, do you believe that the more parents or someone influential in their life kind of pressures them to get into this like routine and like it's only about this sport, do you feel that it can like steer them away from that sport or just really sports in general?
Well, in golf specifically, you can't force anybody to play golf. It's a long day. It's not fast moving.
Hmm.
So if someone's forcing you to play golf at any age, it's not going to work. I think a
Hmm.
better word that would be more productive as a parent, not pressure, but support, because
Hmm.
it takes a ton of support for any. student athlete to play at a high level, whatever high level you're looking at, even if you want to be the high school quarterback and never, go on to college,
Hmm.
it takes an incredible amount of support, time, mental support, psychological support, physical support, nutritional support, money, financial support. But pressure is probably coming from the parents, internal projections of their youth, right?
Living vicariously through them. Yeah.
Living vicariously. I think but support is a better option than pressure. And the
Mhm.
support has to be unwavering and it is all consuming sometimes.
Yeah. Do you feel that there is a difference really in mental toughness and in confidence levels between, I know you mentioned working with youth golfers and say your son, for instance, and really the clients that you work with that are 45 and up. Um, what would you have to kind of say about that?
About mental toughness versus confidence.
Yeah, just because I feel like there's this generational gap kind of with the topics surrounding mental toughness or well-being in general and how important it is. So do you often see like a big difference in that aspect between the clients you work with and youth golfers, for instance?
So you're asking if like generationally there's a different mental attitude towards sports that I
Yeah.
see. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
So I would say that if I can speak to golf specifically, because that's my wheelhouse, there's
Hmm.
been there's been two evolutions, the mental and the physical. So if I'm speaking to golfers that played college golf that are in their 40s and 50s, it was
Hmm.
somewhere around the age of the golfers who are currently like 48 to 50, where there was a shift in their training in college. Like we're talking Arizona, like good colleges, D1 colleges, where it went from like golfers were just guys who like drank beer and played golf to golfers are now training as athletes. We're looking at our golfers as a sport.
Hmm.
So now this is just the foundation, the expectation that our golfers are going to be physically active, going to the gym and working out. So I'd say physically, there's in this specific sport, there's been a generational shift. It probably happened with people who are currently between 45 and 50 in their youth, where it was considered now we're going to train these golfers like athletes.
Hmm.
So I think that would go hand in hand with the mental, psychological aspects of golf as well, because now we're looking at golfers holistically versus just some guys who go out on the golf course and take a shot of tequila and smoke a cigar and eat Snickers. And a
Yeah.
lot of them performed well doing that.
Yeah.
But I would say those two things go hand in hand. And yes, generationally, there's been a shift in supporting the psychological side of golf as a sport, looking at your mental toughness and awareness. There's now experts that are specific to golf as far as mental health and the mental strategy behind the game, where let's say 30 years ago, that wasn't necessarily something that anybody even paid
Mhm.
attention to.
Yeah. So something that I want to kind of end with the episode in general is I called this series Peak Conversations. And I named it that because I feel that the peak of something can be very symbolic in the journey of achieving something, especially in sports and in life. So, my question for you is, what's a peak moment in your career or something that you yourself are aspiring towards?
Are you asking me to look forward or to look backwards?
Look forward maybe, but also
Okay.
I think if there's a moment in your career or just in like in golf in general, kind of maybe like a moment that sticks out to you.
Okay. So my particular business that in the format that I'm doing it now is a baby. It's 2 years old. But I would say some of the peak moments for me were realizing that my clientele was shifting into a higher level of PGA professionals. I've had some professional golfers, directors of golf, people playing and living with golf at a high level that are now coming and seeking out my expert advice. So
Hmm.
getting the validation that the systems that I created are actually working for people, first of all, because when you start out, you don't know, but they're working, they're getting results for golfers at a fast level. But at the same time, what I'm doing is I'm training an athlete to be better, a better golfer. You're talking about peak moments.
Hmm.
Sometimes, sometimes they have this transformation that is life changing. And grown men get tears in their eyes because they never thought that they could, I mean, honestly, like lose weight or walk up the stairs without pain or walk the golf course for the first time in 23 years. I had one gentleman who hadn't been able to physically walk the golf course and he was able to walk 18 holes.
Wow.
Having those moments that go beyond the sport and
Hmm.
affect somebody's life and their livelihood and their happiness,
Hmm.
those are moments you can't recreate.
Yeah.
And they're heartwarming. And those are my peak moments. So I love it when my golfers win trophies. Absolutely. When they tell me I won a championship, got a lot of veterans who are winning, like on their local veterans tour. I love it. But when someone comes to me and I change their life and they get tears in their eyes, those are the peak moments.
That's awesome. And just one more question to end this off. But what is a piece of advice that you would give to youth golfers today?
That's a good question. Okay. Youth golfers, can you give me an age group? Are you talking college or like 7-year-olds?
We'll say probably high school because to me, high school is kind of like that odd time, I think, in someone's life where it's like everything's starting to become a lot more serious. So
Hmm.
I would say more of that like high school bracket.
Okay. Well, junior high school is probably one of the most stressful years of high school for anybody looking to play a college sport because not only are you taking your SATs, ACTs, you've got the classes that are a little bit more difficult, but you're also college recruiting. And so I would say, I'm going to back this up. First of all, you need to treat golf like every other sport. It's not a sport where you can't just go and join the golf team and expect to be taught how to play golf
Hmm.
because you're now playing against people who are high level golfers. And I think people look at tennis and golf in that way, like, oh, I'm going to join the golf team, I'm going to join the tennis team, and they're going to teach me how to play these sports.
Hmm.
These are kids who've been competing in the same way that our baseball players and hockey players and soccer players have been competing their whole life.
Hmm.
But keeping in mind that there is a place, if you want to play a college sport, there's a place for everybody at certain levels. So
Hmm.
you may not be able to play D1, but you may be able to play D3.
Hmm.
So find your place that is appropriate for your level of play and just go out there and enjoy every moment of it because that time passes so quickly. But it is stressful and it takes a lot of diligence and there's going to be a lot of no's, and that's okay. You have to just grind away on all those things that you want and they will come to you, and let your parents support you.
Yeah, that's a big one. I definitely needed to let my parents support me, I think, at certain times. So that's good. Well,
Listen to your parents' advice.
I wish kind of my older self would have looked at my younger self and be like, hey, they kind of know what they're doing a little, so maybe just listen to them a little more. But
Listen a little more. Let them help you write the emails.
yeah, sometimes I still have my mom help me write emails. So,
Oh,
but
that's so nice.
But thank you so much again for taking the time to speak with me. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for talking about the importance of youth development, mindset, all those fun things. So thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. I'll see you later.